Welcome to another episode of ScarfLife's podcast. Today we will speak with you about the game at Montreal. We will cover some of our opinions on the refs of Major League Soccer, and I'm going to share some really good news with RSL Nation. Are you ready? Would you like a preview? Of course, your two hosts, as usual, are Adele and
Bakir.
So how about a preview? Would you tell me yes or no if you would like a preview of that awesome news I'm going to share with the RSL Nation in just a little bit here?
You should give him a preview.
It has something to do with playoffs.
Don't know what the industry term is for what you just did, but we got him excited.
Playoffs. And it's good. It's good. We made it.
Nothing like good news.
It's good.
We made it.
It's really
giving
good.
a lot of stuff away.
It doesn't feel good because of what just happened in Canada, but this news is going to cheer up the entire RSL Nation. Long story short, let's talk about Montreal. What are your thoughts on what happened on Saturday night in Montreal, Canada?
Well, I mean, I think it's as simple as saying we got beat by a better team. My humble opinion. You can't always be the best, and in this instance, we were outplayed all over the field for the majority of the game. I think we had some moments where we looked good, but overall, not a very positive showing for RSL.
What moments did we look good in? I don't remember us looking good very much. Maybe the first, maybe like the second 15 minutes of the second half. When did we look good?
Well, there was that tackle by Silva right before he went down with the injury. That was genius.
Mm-hmm.
And then a long stretch of not looking good. And then I feel like we did generate some offense in the second half, I think, as they were kind of getting a little winded. We were trying to capitalize on that opportunity, but, we said it before, we'll say it again, finishing is important.
Yeah, they got winded, all right. It's that old Muhammad Ali defense, or the Muhammad Ali tactic. Let them punch themselves out. And then towards the end of the game, they couldn't play anymore. And they had a game a couple of days before that, didn't they? Didn't they just play Wednesday night before that?
They played Chicago Wednesday, and they ended up beating Chicago, which is a very good team, as I'm sure everyone here knows. 3-0, if I remember correctly. Tore them apart.
That's not a bad result at all. Yeah, that whole thing went down the toilet real quick. And with Silva, who I think has had a very good year with us for the parts that he has been with us so far. He's been a very good central figure. He's done his job real well. But I hope that what we saw there wasn't that we were already that dependent on him, because that's a little scary. I don't know. What I'm trying to figure out is if that defense, which I think we properly named the Swiss cheese defense, is a result of Silva going down, or if that was going to be the case anyways. I don't remember much before Silva because he only was in for a few minutes.
Right. There wasn't really a before Silva. He got subbed in the 6th minute, I think, and he went down officially in the 4th. So there was about a minute and a half there where we were kind of scrambling. But yeah, there was really no game before Silva. But that Swiss cheese defense, as we've dubbed it, full of holes. We were just getting carved apart. Right down the middle with those long through balls. They weren't doing anything revolutionary. They weren't doing anything that, in theory, we shouldn't be able to deal with. But for better or worse,
Chris Wingard on one side, we have Tony Beltran on the other side. Bless their hearts, love those guys, but they're not. They're not your definition of speedy outside backs when you think about it. And even in the middle, with Silva in it, he's not a speedy guy. Justin's not a speedy guy. Yeah, you're right. They were carving us apart. There were holes there all game. I thought it could have been 3-0 in like 15 minutes in.
Oh, absolutely. I 100% agree with you. It kind of goes to the point of just how great of a player Piatti is. The guy's on the tear. I think as Petke was giving his post-game interview, he kind of said something along the lines of he's a fantastic player and we just didn't know how to deal with him. And that scares me a little bit, because that's okay for you and I to say, because we're not responsible for the outcome of this team. But we've got a coach, and his job is to stop these fantastic players somehow, figure out a system that works. And foresee M. Silva going down in the 6th minute. But man, I I would have hoped we had a better game plan in there then.
It sounded almost like Petke had a game plan, and he knew where the danger was going to come from, and it just didn't work. It completely didn't work. I'm also a little frustrated because they didn't sound too defeated after it. I want them to be crushed. I want them to be crushed after that. In part, as you will see later, this leads into my good news later on. But I want them to be crushed every single time we lose a game. It just didn't come across that way. Something about the game. First time. It is the first time VAR was used in an RSL game this game, wasn't it?
It was first time VAR was officially used to make a decision in an RSL game.
And it was in our favor.
It was in our favor. I lost some money on that one. I was under the impression that the first time VAR was used in an RSL game, it would come back to hurt us, and ended up taking a goal back. For what, I am still not sure.
It was an offside. I looked at it afterwards. When he pushed the ball up to him, when he kind of slid in and pushed the ball up, I'm not sure if he meant to push the ball up or not. At that very moment, he was offside, I think. I think.
Well, we'll take it. We'll take it.
Well, it didn't really help a whole lot at the end of the day, but yeah, you're right. We'll take it. Silva. Silva's starting to look good, starting to look a little consistent. It's a little scary.
Attacking Silva.
Attacking Silva, of course.
Right.
It's a little scary to say about a guy who has a total of 3 goals this year. Seems to be our best attacking option right now. Do you agree?
Yeah. I mean, I think that's. Define attacking. I think Plata is definitely, and Jefferson Severino is also great attacking options. But as far as what we call our kind of lone striker out front, definitely, yeah. Output wise, he is half as good as Euro right now.
He's half as good.
I believe Euro has 6 goals and Silva's now at 3. He also gets paid way less than half his salary. So. If you look at goals per dollar or dollar per goals, or however you want to look at that metric, I think we're getting our money's worth out of him.
Yeah, I agree. Anyone else stood out in that game?
No, not particularly, other than the officiating, which I'm sure we'll get into at some point. But as far as RSL players, there was nobody there that I was like, man, he's having a great game.
Before we get into officiating, and that's a fun one, as it usually is. What happened with Brooks Lennon? Seems like he was the guy for 20 minutes earlier this year. Seems like he went on international duty with the under-20 national team. Was it under-21? I can't remember.
It was under-20.
And then he came back, and he's just kind of been a body. I mean, Bofo, I thought, did really well when he came in. A lot better than anyone else on that front line. Created some chances. At least he was a nuisance. Maybe Montreal was just tired by that point, but I thought he did pretty well when we came in. But I'm a little worried about what happened with Brooks Lennon there, or what has been happening with Brooks Lennon, not just this game specifically.
Yeah, I think part of that is his playing time has decreased with Plata coming off of injury and kind of hitting his stride. It's I think Brooks Lennon has kind of reverted, for better or worse, to a option off the bench, and not necessarily a starting 11 caliber player. I think he kind of had a pretty hot streak there early, and I still think looks great, but definitely not a starting option in my book.
At least not with a healthy lineup.
Correct.
Couldn't disagree there more. So I think we agree to say this is one of those where we watch the video, learn from it, move on. Don't take too much of it too hard for too long. Especially since we only have a few days before the next game is upon us anyways, right? But one thing that will come with us, has been coming with us, and we will have to take with us through the rest of the season and many seasons to come, is the officiating, that awful, horrendous officiating. Let me preface this. I, in no way, shape, or form, believe that officiating had anything to do with the actual result at Montreal. We would have lost that game if there was no official, or if we had 3 officials, or if every play would have used VAR. We would have lost that game regardless. I also think, in general, he did a pretty good job just on the overall kind of plays, right? Also, I'm a huge fan of penalizing players for diving. I really am. Huge fan. I think if we can get away with diving, that's the number one problem in soccer. Followed, well, not even a close second, but the second is time wasting. I am a huge fan of giving him yellows, giving them reds, giving him penalties, giving them. I mean, let's do whatever is necessary to get rid of this nonsense of diving and exaggerating and all that nonsense that comes with it. Having said that, I think the official on Saturday did a horrible job trying to impose that on the game and was extremely one-sided. Was it Brooks Lennon that got the yellow card outside the box?
We actually ended up getting
down?
we ended up getting 2 yellows
Mhm.
for simulation. In the 39th minute, Brooks Lennon outside the box, and that's the kind of the very obvious one. But Luis Silva also got a yellow card in the 78th minute for simulation as well.
Yes, absolutely. Overall, we had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 yellow cards.
And
Lennon,
to give some context to people who didn't watch, there were a total of 7 yellows given out in the match. So the vast majority were given to us.
Well, the one they got was on their goalkeeper for wasting time in the 62nd minute.
Right.
But the ball wasn't even in play. I thought the Brooks Lennon. Okay, I remember the Luis Silva one. Luis Silva did jump over the guy's foot, but
No,
that's so
he got caught.
Well, he doesn't break him in half. Brooks Lennon was literally stepped on, went down. Should not have been a penalty. It was just outside the box, it looked like. And he gets a yellow for it. And now I'm really upset and pissed that they cannot review this yellow. And, take it back. This could come back to haunt us at some point. Both of these players. Luis Silva, our only guy who seems to be in shape and performing right now, at least last weekend. And then Brooks Lennon, who is a wild card, despite what we just said about him. Anyways, long story short, I'm a huge fan of pulling out the yellow card for simulations. I really am. I'm a huge fan for pulling out the yellow card for time wasting. But he just went about it completely wrong. I think I mentioned on the Twitter page of ours that if Brooks Lennon deserves a yellow card for that, and if Luis Silva deserves a yellow card for what he did, Piatti should have had some kind of a purple card by that point. I mean, if you're within 12 feet of the man and you take a deep breath, he goes down. He's one of those players where when people say, where's the sniper, I actually look around for a sniper because I think there could be a sniper in the stadium somewhere.
Targeting Piatti.
Specifically Piatti.
Absolutely.
A lot of players, but specifically Piatti. So, if Brooks, first of all, both of them, Lennon and Silva, horrible yellow cards, should have been taken back. Having said that, there maybe were opportunities in other areas of the game where he could have pulled a yellow card in different players, including Piatti. That's the part that doesn't make any sense to me. Every time you're around the guy, he dives, but you don't pull a yellow card. And over here, for some reason, you think you should pull the yellow card. Even if you don't see that the contact Brooks Lennon has, I can kind of see, okay, he's trying to get a penalty out of this. First of all, wouldn't have been a penalty even if he did call a foul.
Sure.
He's trying to get a penalty out of it. I get it. Still horrible, horrible call because there was actual contact. There was an actual foul there. The guy stepped on his foot. But Silva, in the 78th minute, he was in the middle of the field going sideways, not even going towards the goal. What was that about?
I mean, it's... First of all, I agree with everything you said, specifically about how to make this sport better. I think if you are going to caution a player for simulation, that is one of those calls that you need to be 100% certain you did or didn't see what you think you did or did not see. Because it will come back. Fans like you and I will scrutinize it. Cameras are a thing. And I'm hoping that someone pulls this guy to the side and says, hey, you got it wrong twice in one game. It's quite frankly, it ruins the sport. I have been of the opinion that as the MLS has grown just in the last 5 years, the caliber of talent has increased, the style of play has gotten better, the just the resources within the game have increased. And I feel like MLS as an organization is growing, and the refereeing just hasn't caught up. I think we still have MLS 1.0 refs, and this is a very rapidly evolving league with very sophisticated players who have a lot of experience getting and not getting calls. And quite frankly, I think it goes back to the conversation we had a few weeks back about the MLS just not investing and putting their money where their mouth is when it comes to properly training some of these guys. You know,
Yeah.
simulations,
Yeah, right.
that's a serious thing to accuse of a guy. You're saying, hey, you are faking it, and you're a cheater, and you're trying to manipulate me into getting calls your way. Like, if I'm a player, like you're calling me a liar. Is how
You're calling me a fraud. You're calling me,
right.
You're absolutely correct. You're calling me a cheater.
We're gonna have words afterwards. Like that's not just the thing you casually do. And I think the cavalier manner in which the official was, throwing out those yellows, especially to RSL players, it kind of ruined the game a little. Granted,
there are countries in this world where if you accuse a man of being a fraud, you have to throw down. Fist fights have been started over a lot less than accusing a man to manipulate a multi-million-dollar game. Because let's face it, each one of these games has can have millions of dollars riding on them, especially when the playoffs are involved. All right. A couple of more things we want to talk about. One is the rest of the schedule, and then my big, great, huge positive news. I think we start with the positive news because it goes hand in hand with the rest of the schedule. And then I do have a very important question. All year long, our goal has been to what? Win the MLS Cup? Probably won't do that. Win the Supporter Shield? Probably won't do that. But the next big goal has always been to what? Make the playoffs.
I mean, U.S. Open Cup was kind of a dream for a while.
Yeah. We always forget U.S. Open Cup exists until we start playing with U.S. Open Cup.
Right.
Anyways, long story short is this. We wanted to make the playoffs. We wanted to get ourselves into a position at the end of the season where every game matters, where every shot on goal needs to go in, where our defense has to be airtight, at least not Swiss cheese-esque. And I think we are there. We officially have made the playoffs. We are in a position right now with a very small number of games to go, with a pretty significant margin of points between us and that magical red line, which officially gets you into the playoffs, where we can say we are in the playoffs. We cannot afford to lose a single game from this point forward. We could be okay with a tie or two at the most, but if we lose, my prediction is one more game, we are completely out of the playoffs. Our playoffs are here. Our playoffs are longer than most other teams' playoffs. Every single game matters. Every single game from this point forward, starting on Wednesday, August 23rd at home against San Jose Earthquakes, is a playoff game. So congratulations.
I
Coach
think
Ted Key and the RSL organization and RSL Nation.
I think you need to clarify some things.
The playoffs.
We are in a playoff state of mind, but we definitely aren't in the playoffs.
No, we're in the playoffs.
We're not in the playoffs.
What matters in the playoffs?
Points and winning.
No, there are no points in the playoffs. It's all winning.
I see what you're going for, and I applaud your wordplay and just your logic. And everything you're saying is technically correct, but I would caveat it by saying that we are in a playoff state of mind where every game matters. Losses become unacceptable, and ties become very, very, very close to unacceptable.
Which is very similar to
the playoffs. But it is not the playoffs. We're not in the playoffs.
We're in the playoffs.
I'm not.
Congratulations, boys. You did it. Long hours and months of preparation and work and many losses and coaching changes and positional changes and bad deals. Later, we made the playoffs.
Okay.
Good going. Speaking of the playoffs, we need to talk about the rest of the schedule. So,
we do.
We have Quakes at home, Colorado at home, Vancouver away, Portland home, Seattle home, LA away, Colorado away, and our favorites, Kansas City at home. 8 games left.
8 games left.
What do you foresee happening during these 8 games? What has to happen? What cannot happen? What must not happen in order for us to have a shot at the second round of playoffs?
Well, I mean, I think realistically that San Jose game and the Vancouver game specifically become must-wins. That's a 6-point swing right there against the two teams we're realistically trying to catch for that 6th to 5th playoff spot, if we're going to be honest. And then you kind of also, I would argue, we've kind of lost a bit of that masters of our own fate mentality. I think we're going to be realistic about it. And we kind of need some of these teams, especially, Western Conference games, to just wail on each other. I went ahead and took a look at, Vancouver's schedule. And, they're facing Orlando away coming up. They're facing the Sounders at home. And then us. And then they're facing Minnesota United and Columbus and Colorado. And then the Seattle again. And they do play San Jose in the second to last game of the season. So ideally, by the time we make it to that kind of stretch, it's we have San Jose and Vancouver just wailing on one another, and we're picking up points elsewhere.
Mm-hmm. How many points do you think we need?
That's a fantastic question. Let me take a look at the standings.
We have currently 29 points. Sporting KC has 40. I think we were talking earlier in the year that we need about 46, 47 to make the playoffs.
Yeah, I think that's
50 is safe. 50, we're making it 100%. So we're 17 points away from 46. We have a maximum of 24 we can still earn. So I think we get 20 out of those 24, we're in. Which means one loss and one tie somewhere along the line. I just don't see it happening, man. I don't see that happening. I see multiple losses on our schedule. Whom do we tie away? Bunch of good teams coming up. We have KC at home. Right, that's one where if we really try and really get lucky, we actually, could win, most likely tie. We have Colorado and LA away where we win. We have Portland and Seattle at home. Seattle is just firing out of all cylinders right now. And we have the Quakes, and I don't think we're beating the Whitecaps, and that's an extremely important match. I just don't see how it happens. But here's what I do think. If we can just finish or fix one thing, just one thing, and I don't think it's a whole lot to ask for because we did it for a short period of time just up until this week. It doesn't matter whom we're playing and how well they're playing. If we can just fix our finishing, fix the finishing, in that case, we can do it. And I was really encouraged over the past 5, 6 games. How long did we go undefeated? I think it was 6 games, right?
Yep, 6 undefeated.
We looked good on finishing. Remember, we put 6 away against LA. We put 4 away against Portland. We were just rolling, man. What was it? LA 8 shots, 6 goals, or something like that.
Yeah, it's. I think those were great games for us mentally, but I think we also have to look at the caliber of our competition at that time. It was, in full swing of the Gold Cup. The LA game specifically, they were on, the 3rd tier positions in some cases, in some positions. And it was, I think I'm glad we got to town. We did work and we collected all those points. That's really all that matters. But I think we also have to be realistic about the level of competition we were facing.
Well, they picked up the second Dos Santos, right? But they've lost Van Damme, their best defensive player.
Right, but when we played them, the second Dos Santos had not arrived yet.
Right.
And I believe Van Damme was injured or penalized or something or other. He definitely wasn't playing, if I remember correctly.
It doesn't matter, though. I don't think any of that matters. Because I think, if I remember correctly, We can look it up. But if I remember correctly, we created, I think, 8 chances in that game. 8 shots. Shots on goal, I think. And we had 6 goals. We had 9 shots Saturday. So I don't even think it's a matter of who is in the goal. I don't think it's a matter of who's playing defense. We're obviously creating the chances. We're getting around the defenders. We're just not putting them away. Hell, if every time Silva hit a post, it was a goal, we would be, competing for the supporter shield right now, I think. Anyways, long story short, I think it's going to be a really rough schedule ahead. I do think we're basically in the playoffs already, meaning that every single game counts. And because of us being such a moody team, I think we lose one, somewhere along the line, we can lose multiples. Having said that, how awesome would it be to have Kansas City in town, very last game of the season, Sunday, October 22nd, 2 p.m. local time, and needing a win to make the playoffs. I think that would be pretty special.
Yeah, I mean, it's called Decision Day for a reason. I could very well see that happening. I hope it doesn't come down to that because, that'd be kind of rough on the nerves, as they say. I'm honest with you. I'm hoping we kind of seal this thing. Hopefully, knock on wood, a few weeks before then. But I think realistically, it very well may come down to that. And I think if we're going to be really realistic and kind of acknowledge that voice in the back of everyone's head, that game may be one that we just play for pride and not necessarily for points.
Maybe just spoil it for KC. I hope that's not the case. I hope we go in there needing a win. We do have to go back to a recording we did just before the season started. You actually went over the last 10 games of the season, and you said if certain things happen in the last 10 games of the season, we're winning the cup.
It was 5. It was 5 games.
Was it 5 games?
If we get more than 10 points out of the last 5 games, we are playing in the Western Conference Final, is what I believe I said.
Well, it looks like we will have to get a lot more than 10 points out of the last 5 to make the playoffs. So I think you're onto something there. Plus, there would be a really big kind of push into the playoffs.
That'd be perfect.
All right, my friend. That was fun. Word on the street is we might think about doing a live show on the Facebook Live sometime this week.
Yeah, it's we'll have to give the people what they want, as they say.
All right. Well, as always, thank you very much for joining us. We'll be back later this week when we discuss the playoff game of Real Salt Lake against San Jose. And we'll talk to you then. Adios.